Hello and welcome to the Dash News podcast. This is episode 105. I'm Mark Mason, aka Stay Dashy, and I'm joined by my fellow host, Joel Valenzuela. How's it going, Joel?
I'm doing pretty well, actually. I'm staying not quite as dashy as you, but I'm staying relatively dashy, all things considered.
Excellent. And I'm super happy because we have two special guests on for this special episode of the podcast, Rob and Aiden from Salt Lending. How's it going, guys?
Fantastic. Great.
Excellent. Now, let me get this just right. So, Rob, if I'm correct, you are the head of product for Salt. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Actually, recently, as of recently this week, VP of product and marketing. So we wanted to really combine product and marketing so that we are, sort of homogenous in our approach and make sure that marketing is talking about product in the right way and product's talking about marketing in the right way. And we, kind of close that loop a little bit and make everything a little bit tighter. So happy about that and very thankful for the promotion.
That's fantastic. Okay, and Aiden, I hope I get this right. I think according to your LinkedIn, you're the lead backend software engineer. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Excellent. Okay, guys. So how long have you guys been working for Salt Lending? How long has Salt Lending been a thing? It's been a few years now. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, I've been with Salt since February of 2018.
Yeah.
It's been quite a wild ride since then.
And I've been here since October 2017. So I don't know when the company Salt was formed officially. I think it was sometime in 2016, 2017 timeframe. But I think anybody who is familiar with crypto the space at all is, July, August is really when Salt sort of started to make a name for itself. And then our first official real like product launch offering to the world launched December 2017. And then we've had two major releases, really major releases since then.
Like complete overhauls.
Yeah. Literally just almost threw everything away and started over twice. So that's been great.
Okay, cool. So what I want to know is the big question. So start off with a big question. So for those that are unfamiliar with Salt Lending, they have recently added support for Dash for loan collateral, including support for Masternodes, which is really unique in this space. So what I would like to know is what motivated Salt to develop a bespoke solution for Dash users in addition to the default loan offerings that you offer for other cryptocurrencies?
I think a lot of our decisions around adding new collateral types, we have a list of, pretty 12 to 15 different questions that need to be answered by different departments, whether it's engineering team, legal, our finance team, trading team, liquidity is one of those things. But really the two major things that drive new collateral types for us are customer requests and the, we'll call it imminency. I don't even know if that's a word. Whether or not someone actually wants to take out a loan against that particular collateral type is really a big driver. And so if we have people knocking our door down trying to borrow against those assets, that's really the biggest driver of whether or not we add something. And I think early on, around the end of last year, we had a voting mechanism where people could vote, and Dash was one of the top, 3 vote totals for our user base, our current community. And so, through our evaluation process, thought it would be really great to add that based on, all that. Plus, people actually wanting to take out loans against that.
So you had a lot of people wanting to part ways with the absolute control over their masternodes then, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was apparent to everyone whether or not before we were actually going to do it, we didn't know if we could add the masternode functionality, right? So we had to do some research.
I was not even well versed on how the Dash Masternode system worked. I had to learn it as soon as Rob came and was like, "Hey, can we do this Masternode thing?" I'm like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." Went and read a whole bunch of documentation. I'm like, "Yeah, I think we can actually do this without taking control of pretty much anything." So that was exciting turn of events.
So this was a user requested functionality, or was this like brainstormed within the Salt offices? Like, hey, wouldn't it be really cool if we did this?
I think it was 95% user requested, and then 5% investigation. This would be really cool. We can do this. Let's add it. But as a business who our ability to survive is based on whether or not we make money and can pay employees, that sort of thing. Is really user driven. It really is like a big inbound request for those loans against those assets.
Yeah, I mean the primary driver from the users was just the ability to retain their payouts. But once we realized that we could retain like voting rights and everything, that was definitely like we want to ensure that people can retain that, because participating in the network's obviously very important to a lot of people.
Yeah, that's interesting. So there's this kind of unfortunate circumstance in the cryptoverse known as the Twitter poll, where you have just easily gameable things that just people just say, oh yeah, you should add. Again, one of the biggest offenders I've noticed has been Litecoin, but let's not point fingers here. You should add this, where so many people want to use it if you just add it, and then kind of do, and then you get like not a single Satoshi out of it. And I'm sure everyone's just like, yeah, Dash Master, I'd love to be able to do collateralize my Masternodes for a loan. How did you guys actually get anything serious as far as like real takers now when you activated it, or was it a lot of hot air and not a lot of solid stuff?
The first day we had 10.
Six Masternodes.
Six the first day, and then since then, I don't want to divulge too much information about whether or not these can be made known. But currently, it's more than 50 and less than 100. So
in a serious range, like
40% of our collateral on platform.
Yeah, it's our second most popular collateralized loan product right now, behind Bitcoin.
Wow, that's very impressive. I didn't expect that. Okay, well right. So
what you're saying is, Dash is a hodler coin of choice. That people are hodling Dash much more than it might otherwise be apparent.
Absolutely,
I think so. I mean, it seems to be the case. I mean, I forgot the exact numbers, and we throw these around all the time when we're looking into it. But there's you obviously look at the Masternodes. We know how many. There's roughly 4,800 right now. So that's a significant amount of Dash dedicated to those, and so that's not moving. But then if you have the ability to sort of unlock some value from that, I think people seem to be interested in that, which is great for us, and we're happy to continue to support that and grow it.
Yeah, because I hear this like hodl mantra all the time from a lot of the crypto space about just buy and hold and just hold on to it. And I mean, it seems like sometimes Dash's network like activity doesn't seem as high as some of the other coins, just because you have a lot of people that are literally being paid not to move their coins. And so that's like the real hodl. But then elsewhere, hodls might be a little bit more like, is there a term, margin tradle? Is that a term?
No, there is now.
That must be it then.
Yeah. I mean,
very interesting. I always love to see, because everyone says, first off, there's a lot of hot air in the space, of course, but even beyond that, there's a lot of things being built for an intended purpose, and then the actual market purpose might not align with that necessarily. So I always like to see where people are putting their, the duff is the smallest unit of Dash, where people are putting their duff where their mouth is, or are they doing it a different way? So it seems like it's interesting to see what we can actually glean about how people are using cryptocurrency from, again, companies and who's using what for what.
Yeah, I don't think I've fully understood. So coming from I won't say financial background, but definitely reading various investment books and strategies and all that sort of stuff. I don't think I really grasped the concept of hodl and like what that actually meant until getting involved with this company in particular. And I've known about Bitcoin. I've been around it since 2013, but didn't really like sort of sink in until I worked here and understood what the possibilities were. And now I've become, I guess, a full-on hodler. So it turns out.
Yeah, this is definitely the place that has sent me down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Okay, well, not all of our audience are Masternode owners. So let's just pretend I'm an alien and I've not heard of Salt before, but I've got Dash, but I'm not a Masternode owner. So let's just start with some very basics. So first off, what are the advantages of using Salt over traditional loans that we're used to? Is there like any barriers to entry or loan approval?
You want to take that?
Sure. I mean, the only thing that's the real barrier is to sign up for the platform in the first place. You have to go through the KYC AML stuff, the identity check, like everyone else. Other than that, there's not a whole lot. There's no credit checks. There's no background checks. There's none of that stuff. We collect what we think is the minimum amount of information to comply with regulations around in the places that we lend in. The unfortunate circumstances that we are a lender and we need to abide by all the minimum regulations in the places that we want to maintain licenses and be able to lend in. So in order to do that, we collect that information, commensurate with what their requests are. But other than that, it's really about whether or not you have the asset, whether or not you have the collateral, right? So if you have Dash, you already have it. We know that you have it. You send it to the platform, and we keep it secure and safe, and that's pretty much it. So the idea is that we want to create a system where credit wasn't necessary. The credit system is totally messed up. It's upside down, backwards, whatever words you want to use to describe that process and that whole thing. So it's really about something that you already own, borrowing against that, and that's really the fundamental thing that matters. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but
yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the basics. Now let's jump to an extreme and make it a bit of fun. So talk me through the process. So I've never seen your platform before. I've never used it. So this is my first time seeing it. Talk me through the process. So say, for example, I had a Masternode, which is currently valued at around $157,000 and say, for example, that I wanted a loan to buy a new car for around $30,000. Take me through the process step by step. I want to know how quick and easy the process is.
I think this is.
Yeah, I mean, well, so through just signing up for the platform, all you got to do is set a username or like an email password, two-factor authentication, and then you have to submit your ID for the ID verification. But once you do that, you're in. You gotta what?
Request a loan?
Yeah, request a loan. Basically, you say like how much Dash do you have, and how much money do you want to take out, and then you can basically pick an LTV ratio that matches that ratio of how much money you want versus how much value you have. The lower that ratio is, as in the less money you want to take out compared to the amount that you of value that you have, the better your interest rate is going to be. So if you're taking out a $30,000 loan against $157,000 of value, that's LTV of 30% or less.
Yeah.
The lowest LTV we currently offer is 30%, but it would be lower than that. And basically, once you do that,
there's a couple other questions.
Fill out
about the minimum information that you need, and then.
Do I have to tell you what I'm actually using the loan for?
No.
Oh, okay. Because I was desperate to ask you guys, saying like you must have some really funny, crazy stories. What people have used loans for? Have you had anything like really random or bizarre? You must have some stories.
Yeah, like hair plugs. No,
there's still time.
Yeah.
It's a non-purpose loan, so if people volunteer that information, we're happy to hear it. We definitely have had, I don't think we've had any really crazy use cases yet, just stuff that you could imagine, like you actually mentioned cars and houses, and people do, down payment on a house or actually buying a house outright because they don't want to sell their crypto. Like that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
And,
oftentimes
business expansion is one of them, like mining operations, Masternode holders that want to get more Masternodes. that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
a lot of people they'll leverage their assets in order to take that cash and then go buy more of it.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
they'll take their Dash, they'll take their Bitcoin, they'll lend against it, and then use that to buy more Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So how often does that turn out well? I mean, obviously, I don't know if you keep like statistics on that, but that sounds like I can just imagine, right? So it's like I got a Masternode, say, and then I take out a loan on like a lot of it, and I'm like basically try to buy another one and then hope it goes to the moon and I can just like sell a little bit of it. And then, but if it goes down, then all of a sudden I just like lose everything. It's not good at all. Like that, it's a very risky move that I would not recommend to anyone. That being said, has it turned out okay for most people? Have they been lucky / time the market right?
I can't comment on whether or not that happened, but I mean, all it takes is for the asset to appreciate more than the interest rate, right?
Mhm.
Or in the case of Dash,
If you're getting the Masternode payouts, then that also offsets that factor quite a bit. But yeah, like it's the idea that Dash or any crypto asset could go up more than like 6 to 11% in a year is definitely an idea you can wrap your head around. And a lot of people who are buying these assets are expecting returns much more than that. So if you really believe in the asset, it could be a good play. It's a very risky play. It's fundamentally a very risky play, and I would not suggest it to anyone.
Yes.
But
Also,
if you want to do
belief.
it, that's what you can do.
we have built something that facilitates all the options, and it's really up to the individual risk tolerance. And we do have people that really do know how to take advantage of all of what we offer, and they'll take out loans against one asset to borrow dollars, buy another asset to hedge a little bit of that, maybe grow their business, or even manage their tax situation. So they're all in crypto. They've been in crypto for however long. They're a trader, let's say, for example. So they're trading. They're still all in crypto. They've never gone back to fiat, but they owe taxes in fiat. So they have to figure out how to pay that and how to make that happen. So that is an example of something that people have leveraged us for. I think I want to make sure I answer one other question that you asked, was how long the process takes. We have funded, I think, a couple loans now, 5 or so, in less than a day, basically, where the person applied, made the request, filled out the information, added their necessary information, and were able to get their fiat transfer in that same day. As we add other payout types like USDC, True USD, stablecoin payouts, that'll even expedite the process even more so that you can get funds even faster.
Yeah. Another thing that you might be able to do is, like, say you have, I don't know, about 700 Dash, not quite enough for a Masternode, but you want that Masternode, don't have the cash to get it. You could always collateralize that 700 Dash, use it to get the other 300, and then turn that into a full Masternode.
Whoa. Rewind. Hang on. This is a new concept for me.
Okay.
Hang on.
Yeah. Let me explain.
Play
I got that
again.
entirely.
That sounded really good, but I'm just trying to wrap my head around that.
So say you've been pinching pennies and you got 600 to 700 Dash, and it's like, all right, that's a lot, but that's not enough for Masternode. It's not just like, I can push it over the edge. It's like you got full-time jobs, you got income, presumably fiat income, and you're just like, man, I need and then you just get that gut feeling that the price is going to take off, which price taking off is a great thing for holders, but it's a terrible thing if you want to own a whole Masternode. And then say you get to say that 300 extra Dash becomes like 400,000 or more dollars, 400 to 500. Now all of a sudden, how am I going to get that in my life? How am I going to get that? I already have everything I have in Dash and this. I'm just never going to get there. Please, can the price remain low enough for long enough? But what if it doesn't? So you take a loan out on that. You buy a bunch of Dash and just get you over the edge. And then you continue to make payments on the loan with your fiat income or whatever else, your regular income. You already got that Masternode locked in, and you keep getting the recurring rewards. And then the price takes off and you're safe, and you just sell a little bit of your rewards to just pay off the whole rest of the loan once the price goes nuts.
Right.
Absolutely.
And the other thing is, as long as it doesn't even matter if the price is going to go up, as long as the price stays steady, it doesn't go down. As long as the interest rate is less than the amount that you'd be getting for your payouts, it's a pure value play, right? Say you have 8%, 10% interest on the loan. You're getting 6 to 7% interest on the Masternode payouts, and an LTV of 50%. Then that means that you're earning 7% on twice as much as you're taking out. So you're basically earning, or basically your interest rate is 5% compared.
Plus 5%.
Yeah, it's plus 5% compared to that. So you take that difference, and now you're actually making 2% more than you would be without it.
We're working on formalizing that a little bit so that it's a little easier to digest in terms of like some visuals and numbers and stuff on our through some various marketing campaigns that we're running. But essentially, that's the idea. Is like, you know, you have 157,000. Masternode is worth $157,000 right now. Half that's roughly $75,000. So if our average interest rate is 9%, you pay 9% on $75,000, but you're earning 6 to 7% on $157,000. You're still actually making money on the Dash that you have as payouts through owning the Masternode. So you're net positive in your interest rate, essentially.
Yeah, so that's pretty interesting if you think about it. As long as you hope that the price does not collapse or something,
yes,
it seems like it's like a no-brainer. You just kind of take out a loan that pays itself back without doing anything, or the price changing, which sounds kind of like magic. But yeah, I mean, obviously there's a lot of risk involved with all these things, and we should always be careful about that. But this is like the perfect, you know, you got some Dash, and then the price crashes at the bottom of the bear market. You're just like, all right, I'm pretty sure we're at the bottom. It doesn't have to be the exact bottom, but I know I believe in this asset class. I believe especially in Dash because I see all the development coming out. I see all the business partnership. I see it being used. I know it's going to go up eventually. This is probably near the bottom. I'm going to just get in that Masternode now that I can actually almost afford it. And now with the loan, I can afford it. And then with a little fluctuation, it's just not going to wreck me. I'm going to be fine. I have jobs, I have incomes, all that kind of stuff. And I can like sell my car or whatever if I need, just bike to work if I need to. If something bad happens, which I did bike 22 miles today. So for someone like me, I could do that, but not for everyone necessarily. But just the point is, it's like a tool that you can implement to just make more out of like your resources. Like, again, the reason why anyone takes out a loan, they're like, I don't want to just pinch pennies for years and years and years and just have a terrible car and, you know, bike to work and you know, lose out on all that and then just like dump all this money on a new car, like straight out. Like I want to take out an auto payment and now I got my car, I drive to work and I'm paying it off pretty quickly and it's working. So it's a pretty interesting, the crypto world, it's pretty interesting that this new world of finance is now starting to become like it's starting to join with the old world of finance in ways that like actually make real life sense to people.
Yeah, I didn't think that I would ever care this much about like dollars and cents and leverage and finance and interest rates and APRs and like just all this stuff it really is something that's, I don't think it's, I mean, it's taught if you're getting a finance degree, but otherwise you're not really into that, you know? So it's definitely something that is sort of becoming more pervasive, or, you know, you're being forced to learn about it at least.
Yeah, we got a couple of questions in the live chat.
Oh.
And these came in when you was last talking, Rob. So the question is from Daniel, and he's saying, what if you don't have fiat income, only Dash income? Is that a problem? And then Hillaway follows up on that in the chat saying, and no credit history checks or anything like that. So are these problems?
So this is to pay back the loan, correct?
I believe so.
Yes, because all you need for the loan is your crypto.
Right. No. Yeah. So there's no credit checks required of any kind.
No credit checks, no background checks. To do the payments so, you know, the way that we have it structured right now, you can pay back your loan in the currency. So like if you want to pay back your loan in Dash, that is possible.
It'll just be valued against the US dollar.
Correct.
Right. Because that's the asset that you took out in the loan. So the value of your Dash will be valued against the dollar when it's credited towards your balance.
And the mechanics of that are essentially, you could either, so your 1,000 Dash, that's the loan portion that's being backed by the loan. You'll want to obviously keep that 1,000 Dash in the platform, but then as you can either add more to your actual wallet for the payments that way, or you can work with our loan team to figure out some alternative way if you want to make sure and pay it that way. But generally speaking, the best way is to just deposit more than the 1,000 Dash. So let's say your payment is $100 this month, then you'd want to deposit roughly, I would suggest a little more just because of fluctuation, a little more than $100 worth of Dash USD, and you can use that for your payment.
I can see the appetite and appeal and why people would want to do that, because the average, the block reward payout at the moment for Dash Masternode is just over 6%. So just having one Masternode at the moment, like US dollar range, you're probably getting about $840 per month paid out as a block reward. So I can understand why people feel encouraged and have been taking advantage of this service. But I want to look on the flip side.
Yep.
Do you ever refuse a loan? Like, how often does that happen? Like 1 in 10, or
let me put it this way: for refuse a loan for purposes other than they just don't have the enough crypto for the amount of money they're trying to get out of it.
Only if the government requires us to, really.
Yeah, I don't think.
Why would that happen? I'm out. I've been living without a bank account for almost 3 years now, so I have no idea all this nonsense. So, again, I'm asking you as a moron, because I don't know.
Let me think about this for a second. So, I don't know of any direct loans that we've turned down or had to literally turn away from. I think that there's industries that raise more scrutiny. So if, for example, if you're taking out a business loan and your industry that you're in, is something that is borderline, or, in the United States, for example, if your industry is federally illegal, but in your state it's not, then we have to figure out the sort of nuance.
What industry could you be talking about?
Sorry, Mark, if you're not aware of that particular topic, but that's that's the only one that comes to top of mind. But
I guess we also do KYC verification, and that's if you're on the OFAC list.
Yeah, if you're on the OFAC list. I was going to say if you're in North Korea, but we don't even allow people in North Korea to sign up. We apologize for that. It is a global understanding, and so we're on board with that for now, and we'll follow that. But
Is there any restrictions elsewhere though, like states in America or other places, or is it just like the typical locations like Iran, North Korea, and places like that? Is it open to the world pretty much?
It's anywhere we're licensed, right? So different jurisdictions will require us to fulfill different licensing requirements.
Yep.
And so every time we want to add a new jurisdiction, we have to go get a new license in that new place. And so we've been adding those as much as we can, and we have a full map of where we can lend on our website, and we're adding stuff whenever we can. And we'll prioritize stuff where we have clear interest.
What about the UK?
yeah, absolutely. We lend to businesses in the UK currently. It turns out that lending to consumers and individuals, and you can blame your governments, local or otherwise, for this, but they don't believe that you're intelligent enough to make good financial decisions on your own behalf. And so the regulations and restrictions around doing personal loans are a lot higher than doing business loans. And so from a legal perspective, it's easier for us to navigate the business side of things. And so most places we can get through the business lending licenses pretty quickly, but the personal loans typically take longer. And I will say to worldwide jurisdictions, if you're interested in a loan or you're interested in working with us, reach out to our loan team if you don't see your country or your state listed, and we can work with you individually to determine whether or not we can actually lend there, because we obviously have a really great legal team, but they can only do so much. And so, for example, let's say you live in Colombia, South America, and we start to get let's say 5-10 requests from there. Well, we can go and look and see what the laws are there and what we need to do to comply with those. And maybe we already do, we just don't know. But the globe is, turns out is a pretty large place. So we'll go investigate and add that to our ability to lend there. So, if anybody's listening or watching and really is interested but don't see your location, it doesn't mean that we can't do it. It just means we haven't specifically looked at it, or we haven't seen any prior requests potentially.
This is interesting. Hillaway made another comment in the live chat. Now I don't know if you can comment on this because I don't want to get in trouble. But he said he was following this up and saying, "And no taxes when you pay it back with appreciated Dash later on." So that's a kind of distinct advantage, right? Was this a potential legal issue we should skip over?
I think
we'd
need a more complete question or comment in order to figure that out. But I'd assume that if you have an asset and it appreciates it and then you spend it or otherwise cash it out afterwards, then there would be capital gains on that. So
I'm pretty sure there's a difference between when an asset is liquidated versus when an asset is sold. But I don't know what those semantics are.
I don't. Also depending on, at least in the United States for sure, there's different ways that you can work that too. You can do first in, first out, last in, first out. Like there's all these different mechanisms to determine your tax rate, and that's one of the things that is just about as clear as mud to me personally. Like having been at Consensus and seen the app where you can spend your crypto launched. I'm like, that's great, but how do I know what Bitcoin I just spent? Is it the Bitcoin that I bought in 2013, 2015, 2017? Like, which one is it?
That's what Node40 is for, right?
Are you like tracking UTXOs?
Right.
Or,
yeah. Right. UTXO
because that's very different from any other financial system. Like all the dollars they just mix together, but I could like trace back individual UTXO all the way back to when I first bought it and be like, I bought it for that price. Can I?
Yeah. So. That's a complicated question with a worse answer.
So now this gets a little bit more on, I guess, on the technical side of things, of which I am not an expert, but it's always fun to speculate. The Dash platform is going to be part of the version 1.0 that should be out later this year, being able to create all kinds of cool dApps. And I think it would be interesting if people could make the KYC wallet, or I'm not sure if that's the tax calculation wallet that automatically tracks all your inputs and outputs versus the valuation at the time, and whenever it spends, it just tells you exactly how much appreciation or depreciation you got on that, and then just gives you a balance sheet. You just literally hit a button at the end of it, and then just gives a balance sheet of your username, which we'll have usernames by then, right? Your username will just give you. You won't have to do a third-party service. Again, this doesn't exist. This hasn't been planned necessarily, but I think it should be relatively easy to just calculate a little thing like that.
It wouldn't even need to be a dApp. It could just be an open source piece of software that you could run, because all of the data is available on the public blockchain. So the other thing you need is price history aggregation, right? Many different services that can do that.
I think it'd be interesting to see in that particular case where you have something that's built in that would, before you actually do the transaction, let you know what your tax implication might be. So that would help you understand whether or not you actually want to do that.
The tax alert dApp. It's like, warning, this will screw you at the end of the year. Don't do it.
Don't do it. Yeah. It would be called Don't Do It.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There wasn't guidance that had to do with the actual UTXOs you were spending. You could be like, you could create a wallet that would prioritize. You select which UTXOs to use to minimize your tax burden.
That's your Dash dApp right there.
That would be interesting, because if you have the same, like if you, I don't know, that has an interesting way of making sense, because at some point you'll have to spend or use all of it at some point, I guess. And well, it depends. So it'd be interesting if also with the government, would they like that if you just spend like you spend just all the new inputs where you have like a loss or nothing, but all the old stuff you just hold up. So therefore, you just have like zero tax burden, despite your hoard and your purchasing power going like way up. Or I wonder if they would like want to average out the UTXO tax burden. And this is where we start getting into very interesting territory.
Yeah.
You build a DApp. I mean, who's going to stop you?
Right. Well, and knowing governments, they would go, wait, hold on, we're not getting any revenue on this. They would try to figure out. Like,
they would probably just change the regulations so that you couldn't get around it. But
or clarify it to where it's just like your whole thing. At some point, though, simplification, because that's in that little thought experiment, just revealed one of the issues with tax systems in general, but also, I mean, especially the US one, is that wherever there's nuance, people are going to exploit the you-know-what out of it. And it's like just having something just like flat that's easy to pay attention to, very easy to calculate, is where you end up just having the least amount of problems, least amount of like gaming of the system. So it just might be eventually just, for example, spending exemptions, right? So if you spend amounts a lot smaller than this every month in crypto, it's just completely tax exempt, or at least capital gains exempt, rather. If there have been a few bills that have been floated by that would do something like that, and I think that would be pretty good. Or ultimately, when you have stability, because when you have volatility, when it starts going up and down and up and down, then you actually care about this. Like, how many people go over and have like a crazy weekend in Europe, and then just the euros they have afterwards, like a year later, they're just like writing their calculating their capital gains or capital loss on the euros. It's like, not really. There's not really any significant variance between the two over the course of a year. But then you got like, hey, Dash going from like $7 to 1,600 in the course of a year. I mean, that's a little different.
That's a little different. Yeah, and that's, people are. It just seems like people are waiting for or begging for some clarity around just anything. Just make some rules so we can figure out what we need to do, whether they're good or bad. I don't know that I can comment on that specifically, but just make some rules so we know what to do one way or the other.
Yeah, of course, that's what everyone wants.
Yeah, that'd be good.
So I'm curious. You mentioned before that people have used loans to buy cars, even property.
Buy more crypto.
What's the largest loan you've had on Salt to date? Do you know? Is it like in hundreds of thousands? Like, are people like stacking up their Masternodes? If there's any whales out there, you guys must talk about it in the office. There must have been like, what's the biggest loan you've had to date in dollars?
I think the largest is either 3 or 4 million,
something like that. Yeah,
I think. Yeah, 3 or 4
so
million.
that means the collateral must have been
Wow.
a significant amount more than that, huh?
Yeah. So the collateral was, I think it was a 50 or 60% LTV. So I think the collateral was between 6 and 8 million, something like that.
Nice. So that's definitely some mini whale play. I hate to say mini, but in this space, I mean, there's just so many that just splash around. Was that a business type thing, or was that an individual type thing?
It was a business, yeah. We tried.
I'd be very impressed.
Yeah, if that was an individual, that was good. Oh man.
Yeah.
We offer. I mean, our loan minimum right now is $5,000, and our maximum, even though we say there's no maximum, I think our maximum is around 25 million. So we've had a couple of requests for 10, 15, $20 million loans, $25 million loans. And those are all businesses, but they, they're either still in the works currently, trying to figure out, like, basically doing their due diligence on us as a company, or they've sort of, waited. They're waiting for the market to turn back around to get more money out, that kind of thing. Some people, request and then wait.
So would it be fair to say that the typical loan request is around like 5K to 20K, if 5K is the minimum? Is that like the sort of ballpark figure of the average request, or is it just really random?
50.
I think it's more like 50K. Yeah, I think for whatever reason, our average loan request size seems to be a little bit higher.
It's at least the mode. I don't know if it's the average, but
that's true. That's true. Well, and there's some big ones.
The only data I have to aggregate on is we have that feed of like loan requests.
Yeah, a lot of people will request loans and then cancel, like they'll request a $5,000 loan because that's the minimum, and then cancel it and then make the actual request that they wanted to, just to see if it worked. I guess I've never worked in a place where people are doing a lot more trials of stuff to make sure that it works. And I get that, like we're in a new space, we're in a new industry, we're doing something completely new, but people will make a loan request, cancel it, and then request what they actually want, or they'll deposit like, a couple thousand Satoshis just to see if it works and then withdraw it to make sure they can get it back, that kind of thing. Because, they want to make sure they can trust us. And I get that. So I would say we can get with our loan team and ask and follow up with that if you really want to know. But I think it is closer to like 50 or 75K is the average.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it's important for the listeners and the viewers watching that may be considering your service just to see what the general request is, because they might be considering it.
Yeah, we are. Our minimum is 5,000 right now, but our plans are we just completed our first version of our own internal custom built loan management system, and that will allow us to be a lot more efficient in the loan management and funding process. And so our goal is to drop that down to as low as feasible, really. I mean, I don't think we're going to be in the micro loan business. A lot of the process, so it automates a lot of the process of funding loans. So that expedites, again, funding loans in under a day, but also, $500 loans, $100 loans. I don't know what the minimum will eventually be. There will probably be some plateau of that. I don't think we're going to be in the micro loan business necessarily, but we want to get that down below 5,000. And again, some of that's also jurisdiction limits, states, countries, that kind of thing.
So I'm guessing 2019 has been a lot kinder to you than 2018, because 2018 was a crazy bear market. So I'm guessing 2019 things have really picked up, or was you not affected in 2018 at all?
Oh no, we launched it at literally the highest point in the market, 2017.
Yeah.
So we had the displeasure and pleasure, I guess, of building all these systems that needed to do a lot of monitoring, needed to do a lot of reporting, needed to do a lot of liquidation, needed to do a lot of selling, and we've had the chance to really harden that stuff over 2018.
I'd say that's one of the biggest benefits of it, is that like all the technology got to be like tested out with a smaller group of people before like the loans were slamming in. So like we got to test out all the technology, make sure it was really robust before the bull market came back, and we've been getting a lot more loan requests again lately.
Excellent. Do you guys have like a roadmap or anything, or like any planned future updates that you'd like to share with our audience? I admit I've not really delved into the crypto loan space, so I'm completely alien to this. So I'm just curious, because like you're a fully launched platform, but like, do you have any planned updates or any like upgrades to come?
Absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things that makes us a little bit different than some, like a project like Cardano, for example, or even Bitcoin really, and Dash, is that we're not a sort of public company. We're not an open company in that way. And, we do have competitors in the space that we need to sort of be a little more secret about what our like sort of next features are going to be, or what our next collateral types might be. But generally speaking, our business mission and our business goal is to be this platform that allows people to have something on one side that they want to hold and something on the other side they want to spend. And whether that's like they want to hold tokenized gold, or they have tokenized real estate, or they have tokenized whatever you can imagine on this side that they want to hold on to, and they want to borrow against that to do something else on the other side of the equation. And so generally speaking, our mission and our goal is to continue to facilitate that and grow that over time. I don't think that, that obviously there's features that benefit that. There's features that we need to build in to support businesses. One of the things that we just added for businesses that was a big benefit that had been a major request was multi-users. So for example, if the four of us owned a business together, we could have one SALT account one business loan account that all four of us could be added as admin users on, and no one of us could unilaterally withdraw the collateral outside of the platform. In order to do that, it would have to go through the three other people who didn't request to be approved. So we are working to add more stuff like that. at a feature level, but holistically speaking, that's our mission for the company.
Interesting. Yeah, because it like the crypto loan collateral thing seems to be like the new thing. And you mentioned rivals and stuff. To my knowledge, my understanding is like Salt was really the first on the scene to really make it. I don't know how many competitors you have. I noticed like Nexo and stuff pop up a bit later on. I remember the community asked some questions about that. And I know now we're seeing, I think it's Celsius Network that are trying to offer loans, but now they're trying to, they're offering interest payments for staking as well. Is that an area that you think Salt would expand into as well? Does that interest you, or?
Does it? I mean,
Good choice.
It kind of switches up your business model a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But I mean, like,
it does interest us. We put out a response to all the interest-bearing accounts. BlockFi is another company that does interest-bearing accounts, and there's certainly a way to go about that to do it correctly so that it benefits both the user and the borrower on the other side. One of the reasons why there's this mantra of being your own bank is that people want to get away from fractional reserves.
Yeah.
People wanted to get away from flagrant misuse, and banks are making 16-24% on credit cards that they're issuing out to borrowers, and on the other side they're giving you like 1 or 2% on your interest-bearing account, and it's like they're making all that margin in the middle, and there's no room to give more of that back to the customer. So we really want to examine that properly and make sure, again, we have all the proper licenses to be able to do that kind of thing. In the short term, one of the things that we have done as part of our business is that's different than I think every competitor. And to answer your question about competitors, it seems like we have a new competitor every week. I found out about one in Australia called Helios. At one point there was a competitor called Alt Lending, literally like salt without an S. So
Oh wow.
It seems like every week there's another one, and really all they're doing is just putting up a website and then accepting requests, and then it looks like they're working with like BitGo, for example, to do the custody. One of the things that we're really proud of that we almost never talk about, which I think was going to change here in the very near future in the next couple of weeks and months, is custody. It's something that we had to build in-house. We had to build our own process of key management, wallet management, address management, signing transactions, all that stuff we had to do. We built it all in-house. And so that is probably one of our biggest differentiators over any other provider, is that we don't commingle your funds with anyone else's, and we have our own custody, and we built it in-house to the point where we've had it validated and audited by outside companies, and we have our own insurance. So we were able to secure insurance that secures all the loans or all the collateral that's on our platform. So they came in, audited our process, saw what we were doing, agreed with the overall process, and said, we trust what you're doing, so we're willing to insure it. Obviously, we pay for that, but they still were willing to give us insurance for that.
Yeah.
So a separate custody offering is something that is probably a little bit more in our wheelhouse than interest-bearing accounts, because it's just a natural extension of what we already do.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I want to stress is like the fact that we don't commingle our funds is the reason that we can actually do this Masternode collateralization. Because if we were to commingle those funds, we would like wreck people's Masternodes as soon as we like move anything around, or like somebody else getting liquidated could break your Masternode, or all of that would be a disaster. But the fact that we keep every person's collateral in a separate address, you can go like look at it on a block explorer. It's a very important feature that allowed this to work. And so like it was very validating. Like I like very early on, all of the engineers have been like, we cannot mix the funds. It's important, and just trust us. But now we have this validation that's like, yes, here's why.
That was not a small argument internally.
Yeah, as long as no one threw a chair.
Yeah.
Right.
Aiden, I'm super curious, because as you're a software engineer, you said when you had these user requests to kind of work with Masternodes, you had to read up on the documentation, and you must have had like a preconception of what you thought like Dash was before. But now you've read all this documentation and you've seen the second tier of the Masternode network and what it offers. Has your view of Dash changed at all?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, I didn't have much of a view of Dash at all before before I did this. I knew that it was a Bitcoin-like currency and that it had some privacy features, and that was all I really knew. I actually found to love the project quite a bit after I did quite deep dive into it and see all the cool stuff that they're building. Yeah.
I mean, we were just chatting about it before we hopped on, and Aiden was saying that he had to take a look at this, was looking at the source code, right? So
I've had to read through quite a bit of the source code in order to work through some of the issues that some people have had with their masternodes. Might have to do some PRs into the documentation, but yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I know before the podcast started, you mentioned Node40, and I think this is really important, and it shows how serious and how much you care about your customer service. So this is a new thing. So you're talking to Node40, and for those that don't know, Node40 is one of the longest Masternode hosting providers that's been around. And the people behind it, Perry and others, are respected members of the community as well. So yeah, so Node40, how did this come about, and what's the plan?
I think the way that came about actually was we either had a mutual customer, so someone who was taking out a loan that was also using Node40 as their Masternode hosting service. And so through that, it was sort of this early discussion. And then once we realized we were going to move forward with adding Dash, we reached out to them to kind of see what made sense. And they were really responsive to the idea that they have all these users, they have all these, Masternodes on their platform, and they were looking for ways to really extend. And again, their customer support is top notch. I mean, it's one of the things that differentiates them from everyone else, and really, blockchains in general right now there's not anybody you can call to get customer support for Bitcoin, right? So it really is a differentiator for them for someone. I mean, they do screen shares. It sounds like they're really, really, really care a lot about that uptime, all the things that you would expect because they're dealing with people's money. So as a natural extension of what we both offer, it made sense for us to partner up and be able to mutually offer services. So when we have borrowers that come to us that either currently host masternodes and are looking for new places to do that, or don't have that but want to collateralize 1,000 Dash or more, or the situation we mentioned earlier where there's 700, they get 300, now they have 1,000, they need somewhere to host it. Node40 was the very logical, very obvious choice for us to partner up with and be able to offer that. And even to the point where they actually made updates on their side in their infrastructure to be able to support this transaction type. So, to get in, I actually would prefer if Aiden got into this, but essentially there's a special type of transaction, if you want to talk about it, that they now support to be able to issue transactions to salt wallets to be able to collateralize the masternodes.
Yeah, so with the new DIP3 deterministic masternode lists, there's a new kind of transaction, this pro registration transaction that is used by the network to build these deterministic lists. And there are actually two ways of issuing that transaction. And the one that everyone focused on for the release of Dash, and it's in their documentation, that's part of the Dash Masternode tool, is the one where you have your collateral in a single location and you sign a message from that and then publish that to the network. Unfortunately, that doesn't work for any kind of pay-to-script hash address, and it doesn't work if you can't sign from the location that you want to keep the funds. So what they also have, they have this separate other version of this pro registration transaction, which is the register fund, in which you actually have to move the 1,000 Dash and have it have an output in the transaction that you register. So instead of referring to some other transaction on the network and signing a message from it, you actually refer to a output of that transaction itself, and that acts as your proof of ownership. And that's actually how we managed to facilitate this masternode transfer, so that you can move the funds to a new location, and then that signature that moves those funds is what validates your ownership, so that we don't have to worry about having to sign a multi-sig output, because that's not something that's an arbitrary script is how it's implemented. So you can't just do a standard elliptic curve signature on it and call it a day. So yeah, but since the masternodes and the documentation didn't really talk about that particular use case, we had to like write our own documentation on how to do it through like the Dash core node, which the only way you can do it right now is through the RPC software. I'm currently working on a fork of the Dash Masternode tool to add this functionality if you're trying to do it from a Trezor. But
ooh, that's interesting. I mean, because I use the DMT tool myself, which I'm a big fan of for voting. But so hang on. So so you want to create your own version of it?
So yeah, I'm gonna fork it and then PR it in so that they have that feature available. The goal is not to like create a new version of it as much as it is to just add this feature.
Yeah.
So I'm just doing that myself, and that way they can. It's a different way of signing the transaction, and it's got to be done very manually as opposed to through the RPC. So yeah, working on implementing that for them, and then that way you'll be able to do it directly from your Trezor, as opposed to having to transfer it to the Dash Core wallet and then run the RPC commands. That'll be a huge win for the user experience.
Yeah, it just simplifies the process. All you need to know is the collateral address. Happy days. It's almost like armchair loans. Like, yeah, it makes the process so much easier.
Yeah.
Okay, so
the Node40 guys can also facilitate that kind of transaction. That's also, important.
Yeah. So I have the whole I guess point of a system such as Salt is to bridge the gap between completely crypto world and the real world as it is. And so as it is, in the beginning, the old world side of everything has to become more dominant, right? So for example, you have a big pile of Bitcoins, let's say, and then you put that up, you get a loan, and then you have your fiat paying job that then you use to pay back the loan in fiat as it goes on, and et cetera, et cetera. So first off, so I'm almost thinking about how is this going to be in the future when there's less and less percentage of fiat in the equation. So first off, can you pay your loans back in crypto? And if not, is it planned at some point? And like, where is that going to be going?
Yes, and we are in the process of making that smoother and better for users. And to the sort of idea as we move forward, whatever you imagine a world where you have tokenized gold that you leverage and borrow against to go buy real estate that you then also tokenize. So you have real estate tokens that you're using to pay back your tokenized gold loan. That is a potential situation that could happen in the future.
Right. Or even just in a pure crypto future, any hard asset that's been tokenized, you can leverage that to get some Bitcoin, get some Dash, get some whatever, right? Something that you spend. So,
which is it, in our, not to give away too much, but we have already had lots of conversations with lots of different tokenizing platforms and tokenizing services, and it's happening faster than I thought it would personally. Yeah. Especially things like gold and hard metals, palladium and platinum seem to be being tokenized already.
Tokenized stock portfolios are also coming. Real estate.
Those are all the things. Art, cars, really fancy cars, that kind of stuff.
So let's say something specific. Let's go back to the fantastic example of topping off, finishing your masternode through a loan, right? So say you got 500, 600, 700 Dash or whatever, and then you get a loan out on there, and immediately buy the remaining Dash and can make that a whole masternode. So now you get recurring payments. Now, is it possible? Will it at some point be possible to then simply just direct your payouts, like as soon as you get each payout, send it all to pay off your loan, to pay off your loan, and then not have to do fiat conversion at all, not have to do not have to be like, okay, well, now I'm going to put in the bank and I'm going to send a bank transfer or other things like that.
Yeah, that's something you could actually do right now. Is you could do that whole process, and then when you register your Masternode, you just set your payout address to be the same as your collateral address, and then instead of collecting a payment from you each month, we'll just like liquidate a piece of your collateral to cover the payment, and we'll always prefer any amount that's not a Masternode. So like if you have your payouts going there, we'll just liquidate some of those payouts in order to pay off your monthly payment.
Yep. That's user effective. I mean, someone has to select that they want to do that as the option, but that is an option.
Now, is there a possibility to receive the collateral outside, like to receive it to your own wallet, and then just pay part of it back?
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
so you register the Masternode yourself, so you can send those
Mhm.
payouts wherever you want.
Most of our, it's funny. We have we have all these monitoring tools, and we see payouts, and I keep seeing like this consistent number of Dash being deposited about every week and a half. I'm like, what? Oh, right. So someone has registered their Dash payout to the platform, and so we just see that deposit come through. And at first I was like, why is that? It's always the same exact amount. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Now I get it. So people are already doing that. I think it's the hard part about it is just like knowing that it exists and just being aware. So we appreciate again the opportunity to talk to you guys about this stuff to really make it more prevalent.
Interesting. So assuming someone does that, someone finishes off their node, gets it in there, and then just decides they're not getting any payouts on it because all the payouts are going straight into paying off the loan. And they do that. And then what happens when the loan is entirely paid off? How easy is it for the user to then and I guess this is more of a technical question, but to then just take back full custody of the funds and then just reset their payment address?
So right now, when you finish the loan, you can just request a withdrawal, and we'll send the money back to you. In a normal scenario, you would the easiest thing is if you could just re-register the node yourself. Because the address is changing, there does have to be another registration transaction. Now, of course, we could build in a feature in the future for you to enter those parameters as you want them as you withdraw, and then we'll send that money out in another pro-registration transaction, like the same kind that we use to get the money on the platform in the first place. But right now, just to keep things simple, we just send the money back, and then you can do what you need to with it.
Yeah. Now, I expressed last time I talked to Rob an idea for someone who's completely unbanked as a way of finding like a bill pay type solution. So obviously being able to live off of crypto is like all the rage now, and it's like, oh, you have a big pot of it and then you can get fiat for it to pay your stuff. But then there's like AT&T supposedly accepting cryptocurrency now for their plans and services. And so it's starting to be like, whoa, this is. And then, for example, you have gift card apps like, say, Bitrefill, and then kind of similar intermediaries such as the Flexa app that now you can just go and like kind of pay with crypto at major retailers and stuff. And now you do actually have major retailers in like South America, for example, like 30 plus of the largest department stores in Venezuela just take crypto directly. The Samsung store in Venezuela and Panama takes it directly as well, and hopefully expanding. Again, it's happening. It's like very soon it's going to be very much easier to live entirely off of cryptocurrency. Not everyone's going to be a crazy person like me and just like roughing it however we can. But would it be possible to say, like, I think I heard discussions of like a running line of credit, some kind of thing where I give a pot of Dash, like say 100 Dash or something like that, and then take out loans on that, but I don't get the loans. Like, I don't take the fiat to myself. I just want the fiat to pay a bill for me. I don't want to actually touch it. I just say, here, I'm giving you 100 Dash as Clyde. You just, now that you have that, you just pay my phone bill and my rent for me, and I'll keep on throwing into that 100 Dash pot if you need to, right? Just keep paying that off.
Yeah, I mean, I think the real question is, So, you know, you're right. We did talk about that last time, and it was something that stuck with me for sure. And I mentioned it to a couple people, and they're all really excited about it. I think the real question is, can we build that fast enough to be effective at doing that? It seems like all these places are taking crypto. Like, is
Yeah.
is that
Now
necessary?
the whole everyone's gonna take crypto thing.
Yeah.
Man, that. Were we saying that like 6 years ago or something? Like that's what I'm saying. Like seriously, I got into the crypto business in like 2013, and it was just like, wow, everything's gonna take it. Square Cash was talking early 2014 about integrating, and actually the Square app did accept Bitcoin online only, not in the point of sale, in 2014. And then it's just like, it's still like go anywhere. I mean, I can go a few dozen places around town and actually spend Dash directly, but that's just because I'm in Dash Mecca, aka New Hampshire, or as Mark likes to call it, New Dash here. And he's experienced it himself. So, but everywhere else, like in the middle of, I have one of our employees is in the middle of Alabama, and it's just like there's nothing. You can't do anything. You just can't spend any unless now you do have AT&T and they don't take Dash anyway. So there's going to be a lot of like between the cracks, a lot of things like that. And I assume that a lot of these big players, I've noticed something which, I mean, this is, I guess, a controversial subject, and it's like a little conspiratorial, and there's a whole nother hours long, leave you out of it. But sometimes I feel like there's a certain conspiracy against Dash in terms of integration into some of the larger, more established crypto players, like Coinbase adding Dogecoin before Dash, for example. And just like, what? Like, what is that about? And so I'm not holding my breath.
Of implementation, though, Dogecoin is just a Bitcoin fork. So they had Bitcoin already. I'm sure they had to write like 10 lines of code to.
Yeah, that's probably true. That probably makes it, the whole Litecoin argument, right?
Yeah.
It's like Dogecoin is wow to Bitcoin's gold or something. I don't know. But so yeah, so I'm not, and obviously some of the easiest, a lot of these like mass market adoption solutions. So BitPay, for example, only will take BTC and BCH. And some of the other solutions do it through their Coinbase account. And it's like, well, it's not one of these few that coin, so we can't do that. So as someone who only cares about Dash, really, I'm kind of always interested of like, well, yeah, but major crypto things, and they might do different things. There's a lot in between the cracks. I don't think this is something that if you don't hurry on, like, oh, it's too late, it just doesn't even make sense anymore. But although some people might actually like to have like an automated bill paying system, and any kind of, even if like everything takes crypto, if you're just like, look, can I just handle all my payments through my financial portal, which, could be that, it could be another business opportunity down the line, like long term. But even like short to midterm, I'm pretty sure that we're not all going to be spending crypto for every single thing directly tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, like I think it's fantastic that AT&T is going to accept Bitcoin as payment for phone bills, but like I don't see the world where I'm going to use Bitcoin to pay my phone bill. At least not right now. Like going back to the very first.
Yeah, maybe you will.
You're going to get more Bitcoin now, not spend it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like that's a very contradictory thing to hodling, right? You can't hodl spendle, whatever it's spending.
Yeah, unless you buy and replace. Was that other one?
Nothing gains value unless you spend it. It's not real until you eat it. So.
Yeah. No, I mean, I when I was at Consensus and got to try out the Flexa app, which was iPhone only, so I use Android, so I had to send Bitcoin to someone else, wait for it to confirm. It was pumping, so it was a little bit longer transaction time, a little bit higher transaction fee. And so wait on that, then it transferred, and then it was like, again, the question of like, all right, I'll spend this at this point of sale, but then what's the dollar cost of that? Luckily, it was like $40, but still, it's just a couple of the things that you have to kind of figure out and navigate. But overall, you're effectively you're spending crypto there. So I was happy to do that, to test it out, and again, like everyone gets upset about the 10,000 Bitcoin pizza, but without that, we'd have maybe we would have nothing to talk about. I'm just kidding.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
Without that, we wouldn't have this adoption. We wouldn't have this growth. We wouldn't have this
Somebody has to
understanding.
spend it at every point in
Yeah.
order for it to actually matter.
That's right.
Right.
yes, I mean, it's always these little things here and there. I believe it was Gavin Andreessen who came up to New Hampshire and paid for to be on Free Talk Live, the radio station out of Keene there, and he went with the hosts out to lunch, and he like paid them in Bitcoin, like, oh, I'm gonna give you like 1 million Bitcoins for this, and then later they were talking on the show about, oh, this is great, this Bitcoin stuff, and then that's how Roger Ver heard about Bitcoin to begin with, and then of course there wouldn't be a crypto business industry at all without Roger, and it's just like everything feeds into itself, and no one would have gotten that far if it weren't for Bitcoin Pizza to begin with, where it's like, oh, you actually bought stuff with it, this is real money, to kind of sort of real money. It's like, I mean, you don't have to, like, you better buy those 10,000 Bitcoin right back, but or just mine them out. But if you don't use it, it's like everyone's just gonna be like, well, what can I do with it? And then all of a sudden, you know, say you have $1 million in Bitcoin, and then you're like, yeah, the time has come, I'm gonna, and then you're like, okay, I need to actually pay stuff, and no one will take this. So now someone's like, okay, look, I'll pay everything you want, I'll buy all your yachts and your Lambos and stuff, but I want half. You know, that's outrageous. That's a horrific. I would $500,000. I'm not going to pay that. It's like, well, good luck spending your Bitcoin then. Now you're in a tight spot, and now of course the market, you know, adjusts with that. And so the liquidity and usefulness of the actual system does really, really matter. So I personally think if you can spend this anywhere, it becomes a lot more useful. Even, and I know there's obviously the store of value kind of stuff, but at least with the store of value kind of stuff, you should be able to do big ticket items, or you should be able to transfer it. Like your bank should take it and just give you, you know, a running line of credit or whatever. Oh wait, there we go. See, but just make, like, without something like Salt being there would be a lot less value. It's like, well, what can I get for it? Can I like, and I've actually been in that situation before, by the way, where I was living all off of crypto, no bank account, and then I was trying to rent from someplace. It wasn't very much, and they're like, all right. And so, since of course working for Dash, Mark and I just get money from the sky. Like literally, it does not exist, and then it goes whoop. Like it's not like, oh, there's just the Dash core team runs it through their accounting department. No, we don't work for them. We just put in treasury proposals, and it just pays out if the coins get created. And like, how am I going to explain to anyone, any company, that I just, and the Lord spake, and lo, it was in our pockets. Like it just doesn't make sense. And so I try to have that conversation of like, I can't prove in any way that you understand that I have a job. Like I can just say like, oh, look, I'm on this. Here's like the blockchain thing. It says my name. Here's my ID. It says that. You can't do that. And it's like, all right, well, how about money in a bank? Well, I don't have a bank account. I can show you my big old, a comfortable small pot of crypto that's worth more than enough for like, but like, no, we can't do anything about that. It's like, well, if I'd known a little bit more about Salt back then, I could have just, maybe this was before you guys' time or before you integrated Dash or whatever, but I could have just said, look, you hold on to it. I'll just take out this loan to pay the rent, and then I'll just pay it back over time. And there you go. And then now has much more value. Yeah.
I mean, that use case in particular is exactly why Salt exists to begin with. The co-founders had Bitcoin. We're trying to get a loan actually to start a different business entirely. And no one would take their Bitcoin as collateral for a loan. And they didn't understand why. They were like, no, it's Bitcoin. It's like,
it's as good as money. It's better than money.
Yeah, it's better than money.
These are IOUs, sir. They're as good as money. That whole meme.
2015 or 2016, I think, 2015. And then, they were like, well, wait a minute, this is the idea instead. And so they immediately pivoted into that and conceptualized it and, started on the path of where we are now.
How personalized is the Salt service? So, for example, if I wanted to apply for a loan, what we were saying earlier, I would have to fill out the form and go through KYC, and then hopefully within 24 hours, you could see if that would be approved or not. But like, what happens after then if I am approved? Is my experience after then, is it all automated, or do I get like a real person, like dedicated loan officer? Is there like a personal touch to it?
Yes.
It's really your choice how much interaction you want in the process. But yeah, every loan has an assigned loan officer in our system. So there is a person assigned to every loan. And if you want to talk to them at any time, you can.
Yep. Well, within business hours in Denver, but in Mountain West time. But you know, we obviously can set up calls outside of those hours, make exceptions, you know, depending on what time zone you're in. We do understand that this is a global business, and so you know, email and live chat we have 24/7, and you can talk to anyone on our team. We actually have people that live essentially on the opposite side of the globe of Denver, so that we can cover, you know, the full spectrum of time. But then to talk to someone, you can actually call and talk to someone on the phone from, I believe it's 8 to 6 or 9 to 5 Denver time, which is Mountain West. I'm not sure what the UTC is for that, but
it depends on if it's UTC -7 or UTC -6, depending on daylight savings. So
right. But yeah, we really do. You know, this is a shout out directly to our loan operations team. They are patient. They are very diligent in their explanations, and they will spend the time necessary to educate you and really help you understand how this process works, to the point where you feel as comfortable as you can to move forward with a loan. So we really big shout out to those guys.
Yeah, I think that was a really important point to establish, because even if you have like a faceless service, like we're talking about a lot of money here, right?
Yes.
And we know that there's a lot of other people solutions in the space that, you know, you can't really have that contact with. And I think it's really instrumental that there is that support and guidance that is there if needed. So I think that's another really strong point. I know the Node40 thing's fairly recent, but I think some of the people listening and watching this will want to know more about Node40. And I know you're still working on establishing the details and stuff. Will there be like a blog post update on this where it goes in deeper, like a deep dive on the Masternode Node40 situation?
Yes. Yeah, we are in the process right now. We actually just talked to them this morning, and are, you know, to kind of get through the initial steps of that and make sure that they're on board with how we're talking about it, and our plans are to write up sort of how that works, what the relationship is, and who to reach out to, you know, how that process might work. So we absolutely are very honored to be able to partner with them and offer that their services to our customers or potential customers.
Excellent, much appreciated. And so you have a blog on the main saltlending.com, correct?
Yes. Our blog is blog.saltlending.com, and I believe you can get there from our saltlending.com homepage, which, you know, again, would like to shout out to our design and marketing team for really taking in the last like 2 to 4 weeks. We've really spent a lot of time updating our branding and our language, that how we talk about our business, because, you know, we got a lot of feedback that it wasn't clear, or we were talking about things in a very sort of ethereal way. So we really
see what you did there.
we spent a lot of time, you know, updating that to reflect not only what we do as a business, but also the really sort of badass technology that we've built. And so, you know, we want to make sure that, again, all those things are homogenized in a way that is seamless.
Excellent. Right.
Well, we've been so long on the salt train, which is understandable, right? That we haven't mentioned much about recent Dash news, because it has been a pretty crazy it's been a pretty crazy year so far as far as developmental stuff. So I'm sure you guys have everything. You're all updated for version 0.14, right?
I mean, yes.
Yeah, just like, yeah, that was very non-kill. I was like, I think, was that the one last month, or was that? Yeah. So it's obviously in the process of being rolled out. But once fully activated, chain locks, anti-51% attack protection, that's got to be huge. And I'm sure a lot of people, wouldn't it be? I mean, I'm sure that's one of the reasons why you guys have insurance, right? Is like what happens if someone decides to 51% attack the Dogecoin network and just like steal all the Doge out of safekeeping, and then it's just like, I mean, I hope you guys' insurance covers 51% attacks, right?
I don't even know if they know what that is.
Yeah,
We'd have to dig into that. I don't know.
F/loss. I mean, I'm sure
it happened with Ethereum Classic. There was a 51% on Ethereum Classic. We weren't offering anything against. We don't offer anything against Ethereum Classic right now. But like, it's a real. What's the term? It's something that really grounds you in like remembering like how critical these systems are, and like you really got to make sure the hash power is well distributed and
yeah. There was a recent incident. I mean, well, it seems like a complicated situation since it's rapidly developing. There's not a lot of info on it, but Bitcoin Cash had a 51% attack recently, today, something like that, to where it's something to do with some of the blocks that were after the split were in SegWit transactions that then now they become spendable by anyone, that then a couple of the mining pools colluded to sort of do something, and then the attacker from the last upgrade, a bunch of, I have no idea what's going on, but there was over half the Bitcoin Cash hash rate did act together to alter some transactions recently, from what I've been able to tell. Again, I'm just talking from what I've just seen, like last, like right before the podcast and a little during, when I just saw some tweets popping up and stuff. So that could be, I mean, obvious, and that's been the thing that I've mentioned all the time with the, especially like the Bitcoin forks, because of the SHA-256 at the top of the algorithm right there. And so any BTC miner can just do whatever they want pretty much to anything below that. And it's just that the economic incentives are balanced, so that if they do that, they can lose out a lot. But they can, and they kind of have. And then we have, Binance and all the momentary mention of, well, let's talk and see if we can get a rollback or something. And then like, oh wait, no, never mind. It's just, sorry.
if they wanted.
It's like, sorry, I said that out loud. No, never mind. Bitcoin's immutable. Go back, talk amongst yourselves, children.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know if enough people have been losing their mind over that, but hopefully when we have chain locks implemented with Dash, it's actually immutable and you don't have this kind of vulnerability anymore, because I think that people are starting to, the technology's been there for like a decade now, and for cryptocurrency, and people are starting to kind of like test the limits and see, push over here, what happens with that, what happens with scaling here, what happens with that, and gigablocks, can we do that? And before just hypothesizing, then they do a few on the mainnet, some abysmal failures, some worked out pretty well, and now it's like, now we know what we're dealing with. So I'm eternally grateful that the Dash doesn't have to be worrying about this, because that can be completely catastrophic.
Yeah, especially for someone like us that's supposed to have custody of this in the short term.
Forks are a very complicated question, and so even reorg style forks are a very complicated question, because like, question is, what's the truth? And that's why it's very important that we always run our own fully validating nodes on everything. We don't trust block cipher. We don't trust any external block explorer as our source of truth for what's on chain. We run our own fully validating nodes, and that's the only way you can know what's really happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
so
just to be clear, we actually don't support Bitcoin Cash currently. We don't have Bitcoin SV, so Dash is
that political or technical or?
You don't want to say, yeah, it's political. We totally put our personal opinions in business.
Yeah, we all have our personal opinions.
Yeah, we have our personal opinions, but really, I think fundamentally it was technical, right? Like we didn't want technical and business operations.
It pulls up a complicated question, right? About what forks should we support? Like, are we going to go support Bitcoin Diamond, Bitcoin Gold, like all of these other forks that kind of died out, or like,
do you all of a sudden, so like a good example is you have 10 Bitcoin, it forks, now you have 10 Bitcoin Cash. Do you all of a sudden have double the amount of collateral? I mean, ideally, the value halves and it's distributed evenly, but that it never works out that way. The one coin goes way up and one either stays. Maybe they both pump. So like all of a sudden, do you have
or they both end up less?
Or they both
like
end
in
up
the
less.
case of the Bitcoin Cash
SV,
contentious force,
right, yeah.
like the aggregate value went down overall.
Yeah. So there's business questions and technical questions that are limitations. Of course, we do have our own internal personal opinions about that. But it is, if you do really sort of think about it for a second, it does make sense, logically.
Yeah, at least to hold off on some things while they're still new.
Right.
And that's the other thing is regarding the forks. I mean, obviously, the forks are pretty messy because they're not. You don't just create coin. You create a new coin and mine it from zero and just or just do a big old airdrop or however it works out. It's just like you take something existing and just like now it's split here and inherits everything in all the weird places and use cases, and then now you start making adjustments to that, and then it's kind of like you're jumping out of a moving car and trying to start running or something, or like you have like a bicycle in the back of a pickup, and then you just like ready, let me jump on it, try to go, whoa, and it's just like start from zero. It's a lot easier, and also, I mean, some people just seem to kind of equate a forked coin to, oh no, this is just more of the original. It's like not really. You need time to, and like you need the separate code base to have some time and some development and all that to know what you're actually dealing with. And of course, I'm sure that was one of the. I mean, again, there's a lot of political. You can't go anywhere in crypto without getting political. But I'm sure that there were some technical disagreements with the Bitcoin ABC roadmap in that it was trying to build on Bitcoin that split Bitcoin plus larger blocks and change things. And they're like, no. Well, the SV camp probably wanted to just not change things. And the merits of whichever, it is what it is as far as like the merits, but that's the thing with Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin ABC, having some changes like, say, implementing an avalanche or, canonical transaction ordering or whatever other things that end up starting to go into that. It starts to become like, okay, well, now this isn't just, it's not just Bitcoin, which has been around for forever and relatively thoroughly tested. And it's not just like, it's just a cheap copy paste like, Litecoin or Dogecoin or whatever. Or it's not something like Dash that has been pursuing its own developmental roadmap for, a half decade. And it's just like now it's uncharted territory. So I completely understand that whole I'm
going to be honest. I'm very glad that we didn't support Bitcoin Cash at the time that they split into ABC and SV.
I can't even keep all the letters straight at this point. It's like which one's which?
Alphabet soup.
It's been a huge development overhead that we would have had to deal with at that time, and that was actually a very busy time for us. So
yeah, I mean, we have finance.
Being able to just ignore that was like, oh wow.
Yeah, and sometimes you just want to see, because splits are not necessarily like completely new projects, new ideas. They're disagreements that in a system like Dash, where you have a governance system, you can vote based on which way you want to go, and then that's where the network goes. And if it's just really irreconcilable, then maybe you jump over to PivX or Smart Cash or whatever. But if you just have that like that disagreement where then you split to disagree and split again to disagree again, at some point you need a little bit of a time frame of like, at what point will we consider this disagreement to be a complete fork, and at what point are there's going to be people on a new chain that are just like slowly kind of peter out and just disperse back into the original chain? That kind of goes away. That was just like, because if you start a completely new coin just out of nowhere, that's a little bit more of a, that's more of a vision and not just a disagreement. And so how many disagreements do you want to build a business around? It's kind of
the disagreements
interesting.
All of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every time those coins fork, the whole network loses value, because the network's value is because of all these people running the same consensus rules, right? And if you don't have that, then you don't have cryptocurrency.
Right.
So like every time we split this network, we to lose a lot of value. So as much as we can agree, the better things are.
And
Yeah.
and even to that point, like, think about coming in new and cold to crypto in general. You're like, do I buy Bitcoin? Do I buy Bitcoin Cash? Do I buy Bitcoin SV? Like, which one is Bitcoin? Which one do I care about? Bitcoin Cash is, $100, and Bitcoin is 8,000. So there's this like psychological thing where you want to buy a whole one, right? So I want to buy one whole Bitcoin. It's like, it just confuses. It introduces more confusion to new potential, users of this technology, and it's just not good. So you just get along. Come on, guys.
Yeah, just implement some kind of a governance system
Oh
to
yeah.
where you can actually find consensus. I mean, and at least as far as I've been able to tell, the only Dash forks have been just like scammy nonsense to the degree of like Litecoin Cash kind of stuff, to where I think there was it's called Safe or something, with some like China-based chain split that just was never just that. It's nothing, just gone. And then there was something called Dash Green, which I don't think is. God, I'm getting shout out to all of them, like the most bottom of the barrel shitcoins here. I'm very sorry, but I'm just saying there's a bunch of
things you're talking
Yeah,
about. And
I never
it's
heard
probably better off that way.
Litecoin Cash.
yeah. That's what I'm saying is there's a lot of like
Coin
Um,
classic.
The Venezuelan petro.
oh yeah, that's a
based on
fork of Dash too. Which, by the way, how wild is it that the government of Venezuela is operating a Dash wallet? They have like the Petro site, run by the Venezuelan government, lets you store, I think it's Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Dash. It lets you like use it as a wallet, and it lets you convert it to Petros in like the wallet or whatever. Obviously, it's a custodial wallet. Obviously, it's run by the government, which has had some issues managing money. And I don't think they let you convert Petros into these other ones. I think it's just one way only. But it's still like they have a Dash wallet. They will take your Dash. Like the Venezuelan government will hold on to your Dash. It's kind of, it's very strange.
I'm sorry, I won't get drawn into this right now.
Yeah, I've got a salt question, and then perhaps we should think about starting to wrap up. So, would I be right in thinking, in terms of the legacy-based system approach of getting a loan, if I was having trouble repaying that loan, I would get letters, phone calls, a lot of hassle, and then potentially be arrested or taken by force, right? Essentially.
Yeah.
However, using salt, the worst that will happen is you just take my collateral, right? There's no one going to come around and point a gun at me, or in the UK a stick, right? So
I don't know. Do you guys still allow sticks?
Yeah, it depends on where you are in the UK, but yeah. So, but am I right thinking that? Because I'm not saying like that's a selling point, but I think that's an important distinction to make, because the process and how the whole thing's handled is very different in that respect, and perhaps that hassle-free approach might actually attract people to you even more.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely still give you a phone call and be like, well, if you don't pay, we will liquidate your collateral.
Yeah.
Phone
call,
but that's the only
message.
threat that we have.
Yeah. I mean, we have our notification system is fantastic. You can choose your own types of notifications. So phone calls, text messages, emails. We have a mobile app, so push notifications. And so as your loan to value starts to rise, so the value of your collateral is dropping, we'll send you notifications, and they become more, we'll say, they're not aggressive, but they're stern. Like, we just want to let you know, like the first one's like, hey, just take a look at your account.
We don't want to liquidate your collateral.
No,
we'd like you to keep it.
We'd like you to keep your collateral. We'd like you to keep your loan. I mean, ultimately what happens is, if in the worst case scenario for you as the borrower, you don't do anything, the price of your collateral drops far enough, we have a mechanism to liquidate it on the open market. We have a team dedicated to trading. They trade it, get the best price for you, so that you can get the highest price at the time, and we sell it on the open market. We use the dollars that we get back for selling it and pay back the lender. So there's this misconception that the company's taking your money, taking your collateral. That's absolutely not the
We
case.
don't benefit at all. In fact, we only really benefit from lending out money and collecting interest. So
Right.
the number one thing we want is for you to keep that loan.
Yes. So the worst, that's
Interesting.
not, and in the liquidation sense, going back to earlier, it's not, it doesn't go on your credit. There's no issues with that. I mean, a lot of our, I won't say a lot, I don't know what the number is. One of our potential offerings and a lot of the discussions that we have are with potential customers is, I've got bad credit, but I've got a lot of Bitcoin. Can I get a loan? The answer is yes.
So that's a strong selling point, right? I know credit history is a really big thing in the States. So
Yeah, and from what I hear, having no have bad credit history is not as bad as having no credit history, which is kind of like my position. I've always had maybe part of this like crazy lifestyle I'm living now has to do with my upbringing, because my parents are very much like, pay for everything in cash. Don't, drive a crappy car that you can afford to like pay $800 to buy. And then when you have enough to buy something else with cash, it's like no loans. So, I finished grad school with no debt, and I was just like, no debt. And so therefore it's just like, okay, well, what's your credit score? It's like, I have no idea. And I don't want to look. It's like, it's just kind of like when you have a crazy party over the weekend at your house and you just don't want to like open the door to your kitchen or living room, because you know what you're going to find. You just don't want to look at it. You're not ready. You're not ready to face it yet. And it's the same thing with like the credit score. So it's good for people who are in that sort of situation to just be able to not care about that.
Yeah. I mean, the analogy that I use is like when you graduate college and you go in your job interviews and they're like, well, we need someone with experience. Like, well, I need a job to get experience. Like, you need experience to get a job.
This is an entry-level position that requires 5 years of experience.
Yeah, of course.
Sometimes in the development range, it's like, here's an entry-level job that requires 5 years of experience in a language that was invented 3 years ago.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I like your example better, and your example better, so I'll start using those. So thank you.
Well, that's the other thing is the crypto world is so crazy because there are no qualifications really other than you just know it. Like, because this is so new, like there wasn't anything surrounding this whole ecosystem until 10 years ago. It did not exist. And there was nothing like, let's be honest, it was just some lines of code somewhere. People were setting little digital tokens, maybe in some weird slot machine thingy, or like conning someone into parting with their precious pizza for this like worthless garbage. And then it's just, since then is just like, no one has a degree in blockchain. No one's like, whatever. It's just, now you can.
Blockchain degrees, I'm not sure what those are worth.
Or
yeah,
what they
of course.
do. I see that. I get those ads like sending me all the time. Like, get a 2-year degree in blockchain. I'm like, what are they teaching?
And then the way that they talk about it shows a clear misunderstanding of what it even is.
Right.
So,
yeah, naturally. Although a good friend of mine, Dr. Darren Tapp, one of the early OGs of Bitcoin, and now Dash, he teaches the blockchain class at Arizona State University. And like, I know for real that Darren's an OG. Like, he's the guy. He wrote the first Dash improvement proposal, the first DIP, and he's published some scaling research specific to Dash on reaching over half of PayPal's transaction volume on chain or more, and he's keeping on working on some more stuff. And his intern developed an entirely new block propagation technique called the velocity protocol that doesn't minimize bandwidth, but rather uses it more efficiently when propagating blocks. And so again, legitimate guy. And now he's actually teaching the kids. So
that's awesome.
that is respectable. But yeah, I do get what everyone's like, oh, blockchain,
right?
Yeah.
yeah.
I know that Jimmy Song does a programming Bitcoin from scratch class as well. So I do know that there's some.
Oh, there's definitely real ones out there.
It's
I wasn't
just
trying to.
hard
to-
No.
There's also a lot of fake ones out
Signal
there.
to noise is very high.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in part of Jimmy Song's blockchain class, does he teach you how to sign up for a credit card? Yeah, I had to get that one in there. Sorry.
Yeah, I hope people got the reference on that. I did.
Of course.
Yes.
What do you think, Mark? Time to wrap it up. We've been rambling for a very long time now.
Yes, I think so. So Aiden, Rob, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and talking with us, answering our questions. Saltlending.com And on Twitter is at @saltlendin, and I believe Facebook is the same. Is that correct?
Yes. So we actually also just launched a couple weeks ago our Instagram account as well. We're trying to really, use these channels appropriately, but especially Instagram to show like a little bit more human side of like what we do at the company, and be a little more cheeky, a little more fun, a little more graphically oriented. So, Twitter can get a little bit contentious, a little bit crazy, and so we just want to kind of.
Have you heard of Reddit?
Yeah,
terrible.
I think we have
Where I roll around.
Yeah, we're on Reddit as well. Not very much, but I think for the main part, it's saltlending.com, Twitter and Instagram are really our main places that we are.
Yeah, I'll just follow you on Instagram. So
excellent. I'll make sure I tag you tomorrow in the podcast repost.
Awesome. Thank you guys for the opportunity. We really appreciate it.
Excellent. Well, that's perfect timing. Talking of the podcast repost, Joel, do you want to take us out?
Yeah, because as it turns out, this podcast is available audio only version for the people that first somehow think that our guests will be hideous looking, which in this case is absolutely not the case. We lucked out this week. So it can be in an audio only version. Mark shares that in our repost of this tomorrow. iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, whatever else. It's all there. And in the very near future, all the video interviews will also be made audio only as well. So a lot of audio only stuff. So when you're going and working out, and you should work out because you're desk all day and stuff, while you're working out, running on the treadmill, weights in the gym, you can be listening to our stuff audio only. So don't forget that. And now, of course, it's time for the glorious thing we call the after party, which is sort of like this, but much less formal, and up to like, what was it, the max? We had 18 people at a time, just all in a room, having a drink, whatever, just chatting until the sun starts to come up behind Mark's poor tired head. And yeah, so the way you get there, you go to staydashy.com. Wow, how will I ever forget that? Staydashy.com. It gets you into the Dash Talk Discord. And then you just start asking around, hey, where's the after party at? And then you can ping Mark or myself, and then we'll get you in. And then there you go. You're going to just hang out with the cool kids for a long time, and then, have a Friday evening. And some people who actually do have social lives come in and out of the after party. Like, we do it for a while, and then they leave, and then they come back. So it's okay.
Excellent. Well, that was episode 105 of the Dash News podcast. If you found this to be informative, press that like button, smash the dash, and don't forget to share and subscribe. It's Friday night where I am. I hope you have a fantastic weekend wherever you are in the world. Stay positive, stay humble, but most importantly, stay dashy. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Bye-bye, guys.